Welcome to the Indie Film Hustle Podcast, episode number 145. My 3 Ps: passion, patience, and perseverance. You have to do this if you gotta be a filmmaker. Robert Wise.
Broadcasting from the back alley in Hollywood, it's the Indie Film Hustle Podcast, where we show you how to survive and thrive as an indie filmmaker in the jungles of the film biz. And here's your host, Alex Ferrari.
Welcome, my Indie Film Hustlers, to another episode of the Indie Film Hustle Podcast. I am your humble host, Alex Ferrari. Today's show is sponsored by Hollywood Camera Work. If you guys are interested in learning how to direct actors and become a actor's director, Hollywood Camera Work has developed an amazing master course called Directing Actors. And it is almost 30 hours. And I've taken this course, and it is by far the most comprehensive directing actors course I have ever seen. So if you want to get access to this course, head over to hollywoodcamerawork.com and use the coupon code HUSTLE to get 30% off. That's hollywoodcamerawork.com and use the coupon code HUSTLE. Today's show is also sponsored by Inside the Edit. If you guys want to learn about editing and the creative process of editing, there is no better resource than Inside the Edit. Now, the creator of it, Patty Bird, has been a multiple-time guest on Indie Film Hustle. He's well respected by Avid, by the Editors Union, by everybody. I mean, what he's been able to put together is absolutely remarkable. So if you want to get more information about that, head over to InsideTheEdit.com and use the coupon code HUSTLE to get 25% off. That's InsideTheEdit.com and use the coupon code HUSTLE for 25% off. Now, every once in a while, guys, I come across a filmmaker that is just a little bit crazier than I am. And that is today's guest. He is writer-director Gaelan Connell, and he has done something that is remarkable. And I'm going to take you back to how I found this young man and what he's been able to do. I get contacted all the time by distributors and filmmakers and producers who want to be on the show. I only invite people or projects or guests that have some sort of educational value to you guys, something that I either want to know about or I know you guys want to know about. And that's only time I really bring people on. So I was originally sent this trailer for a film called Blood, Sand, and Gold. And when I saw the trailer, I was like, this is just another big action movie, probably somewhere made somewhere in Europe. And I was like, I don't have any, there's nothing educational about this, guys. I'm sorry. I just don't think it's a good fit for the show. Then they told me the story of how they made it. And they said, hey, Galen made this movie for $250,000. And I said, what? So I went back and looked at that trailer again with those glasses on. And I'm like, holy crap. This guy was able to put together a movie that had action sequences that were in par almost with James Bond, things out of Casino Royale and things out of a Jason Bourne movie. And I'm not bullshitting you guys. I'm being straight up with you. I was extremely impressed with the production value. And then I found out that he shot in 5 countries over 4 continents on a $250,000 budget. So I said, I have to have Galen on the show. I need to find out, selfishly, how the hell did he do this? Because he's basically taken what Robert Rodriguez did with $7,000 and just amped it up to a level that is remarkable, because at the end of the day, it does look really high-end, and it just feels huge for a budget of $250,000. Now, I know what you guys are going to say, Alex, $250,000 is a lot of money. It is, but not when you're traveling around the world and shooting an action movie with no real there was kind of a plan on how he did it. He'd just land somewhere and then start looking for actors. I mean, it was insane. So I really wanted to kind of dig in deep about how he was able to do this. And Galen's also an actor. He was in one of my favorite movies of the 90s called Chocolat, which was his first movie with Johnny Depp. And we talk a little bit about that as well. But he's been an actor, and he decided to jump into directing. Everything, if you put this all on paper and you go, Alex, there's this kid actor who now is in his late 20s and he wants to direct now, and he's going to go off around the world with $250,000 and make an action movie. And I said the exact same thing everybody else said. Well, good luck with that. I wish you the best with that. Let me know how it comes out. It'll be fun to watch when you're done with it if it ever gets finished. And that's the kind of attitude he did. He just grabbed the camera and ran. And it's again, and I say this in the interview, it's basically kind of what I did with This Is Meg, but on a much, 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 much bigger scale. And I was so impressed with what Galen did. And I wanted to have him on the show because I wanted to just interrogate him for you guys on how the hell he was able to do what he did. Now, in the show notes at indiefilmhustle.com/145, you'll have a small behind-the-scenes video so you can see a little bit about that. Galen also wrote a small article on his top 5 filmmaking tips on how he was able to get Blood, Sand, and Gold made with the kind of production value that he was able to get. So definitely check that out after you hear the interview. So enjoy my conversation with Gaelan Connell. Thank you so much for being on the show, bro.
Thank you. I'm a huge fan. You have some awesome advice that I could have followed making Blood, Sand, and Gold, actually, if I'd listened to your podcast earlier.
No worries, man. Listen, it's never too late. I learned stuff on my last movie, and I'm like, shit, dude, I've been doing this 20 years. I didn't know that. It's just the way it is, man. So first and foremost, man, one of my favorite films of the late 90s, early 2000s, Chocolat. And
you're going way back.
I'm going way back.
This is the peak of my career. It's all been downhill.
It might be the peak in your opinion, sir. Yeah. But can you talk a little bit about working on that set and also working with kind of that legendary director, Lasse Hallström, man? He's who just came out with Lasse Hallström. Lasse Hallström. Yeah. I mean, so how was that experience? And then of course we need a Johnny Depp story. But go ahead.
Yes. Okay. Well, first of all, I was 10 years old then.
Yes.
So it was the first acting job I ever had. It was incredible to be, like I said, yeah, it was the peak of my career. It's been downhill since then. I'm just trying to regain that status. No, working. I mean, that's what I thought movie making was. We were with Carrie-Anne Moss, Peter Stormare, right. Just like legendary actors.
Johnny Depp.
Even think. Yeah, I think my parents were more impressed at the time. I couldn't watch most of their movies.
Right. Right. Exactly.
At age 10.
Yeah. Like, who's this? I don't care about Judi Dench.
Yeah. Exactly. Dame Judi Dench. So it was an incredible experience. Incredible cast. We filmed in France and in England. It was a total dream. I mean, when I woke up at age 11, I thought I couldn't believe it had happened. And it set me really on the career path that I took today. And I went to film school after that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, you just looking back, you just realize how fortunate it was to have that at such a young age and be around such talented, unbelievable filmmakers. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's just an incredible experience.
So give us a quick Johnny Depp story.
Johnny Depp at the premiere, which was in New York City, mm-hmm. and it was sponsored by Godiva chocolate.
What a shock!
Enormous chocolate bunnies and rabbits and all sorts of stuff all over the place. People were just stealing them at the end or taking them home or putting them in their jacket. Johnny Depp was a big name then. He still is now.
Yeah, he's doing okay now for himself too. Yeah.
I've heard of him. No, and it was like you had access to all those people as a 10-year-old because he didn't want to deal with the paparazzi. He didn't want to deal with the adults. But at the premiere, he sees the 10-year-old kids from the movie. He says, "Hey, come on over. Let's hang out." Get to hang out with them. Not a Johnny Depp, but Carrie-Anne Moss of Matrix fame. Mm-hmm. She would. We were getting tutored on set because we still had to go to school. Right. So we had a tutor, and there was a trailer the same way you have other trailers for actors on set, and she would just come in and tell the teacher, like, "We're done with class for the day. I'm gonna just do painting with the kids now," which was like all-time badass move.
Right. Well, she is Trinity, so I mean, there is that.
Exactly. There is that. So yeah, just being around those people is just incredible. Looking back, and knowing that I had that opportunity was really beautiful.
So you started off obviously as an actor, and now what made you want to jump into directing and producing?
I started working behind the camera. I started making films right after Chocolat, on a Sony VX2000, I think was one of the first cameras I had.
Right.
And they had premieres, like early premiere.
Ooh, I'm sorry to hear that. That's That's a rough statement, man.
Um,
It's like editing on Final Cut 1. It's like, ooh.
like on a Steinbeck.
No, that's actually better. A Steinbeck would have been better.
So no, I edited that, and then I went to film school at NYU. But I feel like with this movie that we made, Blood, Sand, and Gold, it was really something that I'd always dreamed to do. I always wanted to make an action movie. I always wanted to make an adventure movie. That's what inspired me. And it was a total challenge to get to that point because nobody thought we could make a movie in 5 countries around the world with no budget, with no sign off from people in Hollywood. So like,
right.
One of the things, one of the big things I wanted to share was just like some of the tricks that we did on that film, on Blood, Sand, and Gold, that if you're listening to the podcast right now, that you could do right now if you wanted to go out and make a movie, to make your movie look like it's a $200 million movie when it really wasn't, because we had to employ these throughout the whole film to make it look badass.
Well, we will definitely get into all of that. But first and foremost, the people who are just listening and just tuning in,
Yes.
Blood, Sand, and Gold is Galen's first directorial debut, correct? As far as a feature film is correct,
That's correct. That's
right.
correct.
And a hell of a debut it was. I was approached for Galen to come on the show, and when they asked me, they're like, "Hey, would you like to have this director on the show?" And I looked at the trailer, and I just said, "Oh, it's just another big action movie, international action movie."
It's both
I'm
a
like,
good and bad thing.
no, but you know what I mean. Like, I'm like, oh, it's just another beautiful big action movie. I'm like, look, I really, my listeners need like kind of like gritty in the back alley of Hollywood, as I say, kind of information. And I'm like, I don't know what this. And then they told me the budget, and I'm like, wait, what? And then I dug a little deeper, and just the production value of the film is insane. It's absolutely insane. So let's talk a little bit about your journey from script to actually giving a first-time director, quote unquote, $250,000 to the point that you get to the first day on set.
Okay. So Blood, Sand, and Gold, action adventure film. It's in the vein of Indiana Jones. It's a treasure hunt, modern day treasure hunter. We filmed it in 5 countries all across the world, in Mexico, in Hong Kong, in Switzerland, in Dubai, and in Morocco.
That's sick.
And we filmed it over something like 57 production days, which was totally insane. And I think
You got
someone
50
said that
you have 50
Spielberg shot Lincoln in 53.
Like, you got 57 production days?
It was in the high 50s.
That's ridiculous. Okay, please continue.
It was totally insane.
Please continue, sir.
Yes. And so and we did it with no help from basically anybody in Hollywood. I mean, people were like, okay, go live the dream, buddy.
Yeah. Look, if you call me and you tell me this, dude, I'll be like, I'm like, you're out of your fucking mind. I'm sorry. Like, you're out of your mind. There's no possible way.
Exactly.
Right.
And it's like, real. I'm touched that people think that we had more money, because that's great. I mean, but I wish we did have more money. But no, and the movie has explosions, helicopters, action sequences. I mean, we tried to do our ode to a big budget, action adventure film that I've grown up loving, and that I, through film school, I was like, this is the kind of movie I want to make. And that's what I wanted to do. But I could not have done that without a lot of the technological advances that we have now, and then a lot of kind of tricks that we had planned the movie around to make the most of a tiny budget. And that was really, as we were making the script, we had to keep that in mind, because we knew we were going to make the movie, and so we had to write the script around what we had. It was a little bit like the Robert Rodriguez style of filmmaking, where he's like, figure out all the props you have and then write the movie.
But instead of a turtle, you had a helicopter.
Right. Exactly. But there was one thing when I set out to do this movie that I knew that would help us, and this is kind of like the first tip I would say, is I knew filming and traveling outside the country is a lot cheaper than you think. So our cast and crew, the core crew members, we took a plane ticket that went from New York to Mexico, Mexico to China, China to Dubai, Dubai to Morocco, Morocco to Switzerland, and then Switzerland back to New York. We went around the globe once. We circumnavigated it once.
And I've actually done a little travel hacking, so that you get a much better deal when you do a worldwide ticket like that, because you have layovers, right?
You just keep adding on into one ticket, and you make the layovers be last a week or last 6 days. So the actual ticket for each of us was something like $1,700 each to do that for 2 months. Which was like,
that's a huge travel hack. Yeah, that's a huge travel track. A lot of people don't know that, but I actually, doing research on travel hacking, found that's one of the big keys. Like, you can travel the world on $2,000
because they want to get you on the leg that you're paying for, and then they'll put you on a leg that's cheaper. I don't know the whole details. There's probably podcasts about that, but
sure,
I'm saying it was like $1,700
each
a person.
And how many people did you have?
And the second thing we did when we designed this is we said, what do we really need? We're going to the middle of the Sahara Desert. We need a camera. We need some beautiful lenses. It's not like we're going to have a lot of rental equipment outside of that. We can do this if the locations speak for themselves and the practical effects speak for themselves. We can do this with a documentary style crew. And so we just had a producer, a director, myself, and
you are the director, you mean?
Sorry, a producer, producer, director, a camera person, a DP, director of photography, and one other person who was doing kind of pulling focus.
And he sound
that was the whole crew.
How about a sound guy? Or did you pick up sound guys along the way?
No, a producer did the sound guy.
Oh, but producer, okay.
Producer did the sound.
So you had you basically had a 4-man crew?
We had a 4-man crew outside of Mexico.
Okay, and your talent, your two main talent.
Yep, and then we brought the lead actor and the lead actress, Monica West and Aaron Costaganis. And then we flew whoever needed to be for certain scenes out just for that part.
Okay. You mean actors, you mean?
Yep, whatever kind of actors we needed. So, but we were basically a bare bones crew. And the reason I say kind of like something that you can do immediately, and this may be controversial, but we filmed everything outside of the country. And there was something, and you could do this definitely in different parts of the U.S., but there was something incredibly magical about going to places where people don't often see film production, because they were so helpful in a way that, if I bust out a camera right now in New York City, people would be like, you have a permit.
Yeah, same here in LA. Of course.
Right, exactly. And it's nothing against, it's just people see this so much, it's not as exciting. But for example, when we were filming in Mexico, we needed a big scene with a bunch of people to show up, and we got our friends, we got people on Facebook to come show up for this big party scene. And it's the scene in the movie where the bad guy shows up in like a badass car. And so we had rented a car, and the car never showed up. And, we were like 200 people were there, 200 extras. We're filming everything in the scene. We're giving them free alcohol, so they're all getting drunk. So there's kind of a time limit on
what you could shoot because of just basically alcohol poisoning. Got it?
Yeah, exactly. And a friend, we're freaking out because the rental car, the nice rental car we had, didn't show up. And a friend of a friend of a friend was like, oh, they're shooting a movie. I'll bring my $200,000 Mercedes SLS to the set.
Nice.
Which has the doors that rise up on the side.
Back to the Future style, right?
Exactly. and it just was like a dude who he wanted a Facebook photo. He wanted to be part of a film production and get a Facebook photo with him in front of the, with his car there and everything. And the same thing happened on the other side of the world in Morocco. Is we were filming the opening scene of the movie, which they're finding this treasure chest, and we're in the middle of the Sahara Desert. We don't have a treasure chest, right?
All right. Right, of course.
we couldn't bring it on the plane.
All right.
And there's a guy, like a local guy, who was like totally down with helping out with the movie. He said, dude, my dad, he's got a bunch of like old chests that he sells at the market. You can totally just rent one for the day.
But let me. So I mean, okay. So you're now traveling. You're a world globe trotter at this point in
Right.
the game. You've got basically four main cast. I mean, four main people with you.
Right.
There has to be logistics when you land. Like, who's booking the hotels? Who's getting who's jumping to these locations? Like, who did all this research? I mean, because it can't be you guys. I gotta believe, unless your producer is a super producer, which at that point I want his name. But
he is a super producer.
Okay.
He is a super producer.
Okay.
His name's Francisco Arias Flores.
Okay.
And if you ever want to make an action movie like we did, use him.
Okay.
But it brings to the second kind of tip that I'd say for filmmakers, which is use Airbnb. And I say this because Airbnb, or it doesn't have to be specifically Airbnb, but use an online platform where you can rent someone's house or rent someone's place. And this was invaluable because what we did is we would pick out the scenery we wanted. So we wanted to go to the Sahara Desert. We wanted to film the dunes. So the closest city there is the tiny city called Merzouga in Morocco. And there was this one German lady who's got her house on Airbnb there. And it's something like $65 a night. And it sleeps like 8 people. so and you literally walk outside and it's like the most beautiful sand dunes, it's like Lawrence of Arabia.
Right.
So we picked these Airbnbs in each of the countries near the areas that we wanted to. We would stay there as a crew, and then we'd also have a location to film. Let me give you another example. Another place in Morocco is called Chefchaouen, where we went, and we picked it literally based on a Google search because the entire city is dyed blue. All the walls of the entire city.
Yeah, they're gorgeous.
It's beautiful, and it's like world famous. So there's an Airbnb. There's a woman, a Spanish lady, very nice, who rents her like 4-story apartment building that's in the historic downtown. It's all blue. It's like it's a castle.
Yeah.
And so we showed up there 2-3 days before. We knew we were going to film in the city, and we used the rooftop of the building to film a scene. We used a really beautiful room inside of it to film a police station scene. And it was our home base. All the actors, the crew we all stayed there.
Are you writing a little bit as you go along? Like basically rewriting certain things just based around the locations you have or the things that come up?
We definitely had to improvise.
Okay.
We definitely had to improvise. And that's another thing I would say to anybody is you have to prepare to improvise. And we did that not just to make something work, but to make something look better. So I know these stories sound outrageous, but everything's true, I swear.
No, it does. No, but yeah, go ahead.
So an example of how we improvised to make the movie look better is we were filming some explosion sequences in Mexico, and we were filming this like
okay. So stop right there. Stop right there. How did you get the explosions? How did you get the pyrotechnic guy? Because I can't believe you just grabbed a bunch of fireworks and blew shit up. So how did you? I want to take it step by step. How did you get that, dude?
Right, we're going step by step. All right.
How'd you get that, dude?
So I know there's a lot. I know there's a big push right now. Everyone has the ability on their computer to make special effects, to do all of that. And I think that's great. But for us, for our budget, going practical was extremely cheap. For example, having someone, render out, build all the composite stuff. I don't have that skill set. No one on our crew had that skill set for explosions. But we purchased we got a pyrotechnic guy, and the bombs that we set off in our movie, they were only $50. I'm not making that up.
Okay. But you
$50.
And you were doing it in a non-populated area, and you did have a pyro guy there.
We had a pyro guy. He was in Mexico. He'd done a bunch of films. He was relatively inexpensive as well. But he was like, Galen, look, each of these things cost me $50. So
you're like, give me 10.
Put it in everything.
Give me 10.
Let's add more explosions. So we're doing one sequence. You were talking about improvisation. We're doing one sequence where in Mexico where we'd blown up stuff. We were in a rural area, and part of the scene after the explosion, there were all these like oil cans, and they were all burning on fire. And we said, like, look, this is like a sick backdrop. And of course, I'm telling it like it was totally rogue. There were safety people there, etc.
Right. I was gonna ask safety people. Also, I mean, generally speaking, when you have explosions happening on the countryside, aren't people gonna call the cops? Are the police or local authorities aware of what you're doing? I'm assuming there are no permits, but like
people in the neighborhood nearby did call the cops.
Okay.
And they just came and kind of like hung out with us.
Of course, because there's nothing else to do.
Yes.
Got it.
And we begged forgiveness after the fact. But it was like a ruin. We were way out in the countryside. There was no like.
So
really
okay? So let me just, because I gotta break this down for everybody. I gotta break because you're going at a mile a minute. So I gotta break it down. So you went out into the rural countryside of Mexico with a pyro guy and a bunch of explosions. You basically asked no permission from anybody. Okay. So then there was permission. Okay.
Most of that is correct.
Okay.
We did have permission to use the site we were filming on, which was like an abandoned castle.
Okay, so the owner of that property knew what was going on.
Yeah,
good.
Yeah, exactly.
So
we were making a movie.
Okay, great. So you had permission from the landowner, but no authorities were asked about anything as far as police or, God forbid, a film commission or anything like that, right? I'm on point so far?
I want to say you're 98% there.
Okay.
But this one of the other great things about filming film is Guadalajara, for example.
Sure.
They have people that work for the government that are a part of the film commission.
Okay.
And they had no movies that they were making at the time.
Uh-huh.
So these two people who worked for the government literally were full-time working on our film.
Got it.
We would get calls like, hey, do you want to we have like a jail. You guys had asked for a jail. We have like a real jail that you guys can film at today. And, we'd say, okay, let's go right now. Let's get the shot of the main character walking out of prison for the opening of the movie. So
I love this, man. I really do. I'm sorry. I just love this improv, like, screw it attitude. Just like, hey, we're just going to go down to Mexico. We have a bunch of stuff we're going to shoot and things will just happen. Things are just going to pop up.
I think that goes back to what I was saying, which is like, if you film in an area, if you're really cool with people,
of course,
and you film and you're nice, people will help you out. But if you film in an area that doesn't often see films, they're totally, it's like,
it's exciting.
And it's
super
seeing
exciting.
Films as a magical thing, not a nuisance. Not something that,
right. Not like here.
Which is, I mean, I shoot a bunch of commercials too. And it's like, everything's permitted, everything, whatever. You have a dog walking around on set. You have like 17 different people from different organizations there just for the dog.
Oh, God, I know. Yeah, I know.
And that's great. But I think when you're making a film, that's art, and you want to have complete freedom. And you don't want to be, it's not about being dangerous or reckless, but it's about just like being able to, have that freedom to go create.
I feel
in the moment.
I did exactly what you did, but on a much, much smaller scale with This Is Meg, with my little movie, and it's exactly the same plan. I was like, I want my freedom. I want to go out. I just want to, it's just me and two other guys. What do I actually need to go make the movie? You just amped everything up to 1,000, so instead of a small character piece, you've made a huge action movie. Which is, and I hope more people are going to start talking about this, because I'm gonna scream it from the top of the hills on this, because it's inspiring, man. And this hasn't honestly, I haven't seen anything like this before. I haven't heard of anything like this before. It might have happened. I just don't know about it.
Thank you.
But and we have more stuff to talk about. We'll get into the gushing later. Go ahead, continue.
Yeah. So. No. So it's just kind of I forget where we were picking
I think we were there was explosions that you're working with people. You were working. Yeah, people just called the Mexican government officials. Yes. Uh-huh.
That's the recap right there.
Pretty much, yeah.
Next, there's explosions and we're in Mexico and dreams are happening.
Yes, exactly.
And just preparing to improvise. So we were doing this explosion sequence, and the set was actually like kind of catching on fire. We had, we could have put it out. It was ready to be put out, but it was like, this is this unbelievable backdrop that we hadn't set up for, of these flames burning in front of the castle. Chris, our main guy, our main bad guy, said like, let's go film here. Let's get you like in front of all of this again, not in a dangerous way, and he was like, He was like, heck yeah. Everyone on the movie would recognize kind of how absurd it was that we were doing.
Mhm.
And this is something, it looks like the final sequence that wasn't planned. It was
Mhm.
supposed to be explosions and then some other shots. And instead we have like the bad guy crawling through, burning rubble. It's like a Michael Bay film.
Mhm.
And that's kind of just like, we tried to steal those moments whenever we had. The idea was really like, if you put it in one thing, it was like, how awesome will it be if you have one great camera, some beautiful lenses, a couple fake guns, and you land in the middle of the Sahara Desert? I mean, no matter what you make, it's going to look badass.
Fair enough.
You could point the camera in any direction, and you're like, all right,
And it's lit, and we're lit.
yeah, this is some mind blowing stuff.
Yeah, we're lit. Let's go.
Yeah.
So I want to back up real quick, because because I know a lot of my audience is going to want to know this. How did you get the budget? Who is the maniac who gave you $250,000 to do this?
Right. So,
And you don't have to say names, but just tell me in general.
No. So there's three parts of this, and I don't want to lose anyone here. I was on, before I did this, I was on a Cartoon Network TV show, for a while, and I made some money doing that.
Mhm.
And when I wanted to make this movie, it's tough. I wanted to have like complete freedom,
Mhm.
so I took whatever money that I had saved up from acting,
Mhm.
and I put it all into this. My bank account had like $600 after the end of this movie.
So you financed a chunk of this.
I financed a chunk of it, and then what I did, and this I think is the only way to operate, is I told two other people in Hollywood that had known me, that were connected loosely with films, and wanted to invest in some type of movies that I had just known through my network.
Mhm.
And I said, listen, we're going to start filming this. I'm putting up the budget right now. We're going to film this. I believe in this. I don't have sign off from anybody else, but if you believe in this too, see what we're doing and help us out. And no one knew this at the time on the set, but the budget that I had would not have gotten us through the whole film.
Oh my God, you're a maniac. I love
No.
it. No, you're an insane man. Go ahead.
But when we were there, and in week one we filmed, and we'll talk about this because I know you're a big gear guy.
Yeah.
We talked about, we filmed some drone stuff, we filmed some explosion stuff, and I sent this footage back to Los Angeles. And these people are like, all right, this is nuts. Here we go. But it was the attitude where you're basically just saying, look, the train is leaving the station, and you can either get on it or get off, but it's going.
Man, I mean, do you mind me asking how old you are?
I'm 27.
Okay, because you have basically the same attitude I had when I was 27, which you're a maniac. Because as a general and I say this in a good and bad way, as a general statement, and I've been on those projects where the train left the station. I've been close to projects where the train left the station, and then the train derails. And more often than not, the train derails. So you were really rolling the dice hard. And not only on your idea, your dream, your vision, but on your pocketbook, your wallet. Not your pocketbook, but your wallet.
Years from now, when I try and buy a house and can't, I'll blame this. But for the
Of course.
moment, I don't regret anything.
And you shouldn't.
This
and,
was like,
dude,
this was the thing I would wake up every night, literally wake up every night, wake my girlfriend up and say, I have to make this action movie. I have to make it. Like, that's what I want to do.
Mhm.
And she's like, all right.
Let's go do it.
Go for it.
Go for it. No.
Because you don't want to show up 15 years down the line and be like, well, everything's pretty cool now, but I didn't get to do that one thing.
Right, and that's I think a lesson that everyone listening should to take in is just like, man, sometimes you just got to put your balls on the table, and they might get slapped, they might get cut off, but
and I'm happy to share, like at the, I know we were going to talk about this later, but I'm happy to chat about like 5 things that I did wrong.
Oh yeah,
in this film that I guarantee other people should not do, and I'd hope would help them in terms of not doing.
Gotcha. Okay, we'll get to that.
Ties into this. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get into that. Now, I wanted to also ask you, because when I did see the movie, I saw one thing that was not there generally in a action movie in today's world, which is big name actors or marketable name actors that could sell territories. That is a general.
You just got there. You just got to tip number one of what I could have done better.
Okay,
what we could have done better.
So tell me why you didn't, because I mean, on this budget range, you could have easily gotten a face or a name for a day, shoot him out in Mexico, shoot him out in Dubai, shoot him out, and then that guy's on the poster. In the general idea of what distributors are looking for, and with these kind of movies, which are action adventure movies,
right?
I've never seen an action adventure movie at this scale, knowing that I know what your budget is, but at least at this perceived scale, without any faces or names in it that that bring money to the table as far as distribution is concerned. So please enlighten us.
Yes. Well, I mean, that's something that I learned the hard way.
Okay.
And I think in kind of the reckless, I don't want to say reckless.
No, it's reckless, dude. It's reckless. It's wonderfully reckless.
Together, you know, I was also under the impression that one of the reasons was what you said, that the plus side of what you said, which is that the action film, the crime genre, the horror genre tend to have legs in a lot of international film markets, you know, but I figured that they may have legs just based on the effects in the story, not necessarily with the name. So that's wrong. If you're out there and you're listening right now, do what Alex said.
I appreciate
before you make your movie, find a name, any name, kill them off in the first scene. I don't care. Rotoscope them in the title sequence. You know, they just have to be there on the poster so that some guy that you've never met who's asking about the film years later is like, well, is so-and-so in it? Great. And it checks his box, you know, and that's the hard truth.
All right.
Aaron and Monica are unbelievable actors, both of them, and Christopher Redman and everybody else we had. And they have awesome performances in the film, truly. But they don't have that name that right now that some guy, like I said, that I've never met, who's buying the rights for China or buying the rights for the airlines or buying the rights for Morocco or whatever needs. And he has his little list and he says, okay, I need this person in it to get X price. So that's something definitely going back I would have changed.
And I think also there was a double-edged sword there.
Changed because I love the actors that are in the film, but I would have included someone.
Right, you would have, yeah, exactly. But there's something to be said though. I mean, what you've done is great, but you could, and when you were starting out, like you basically had no street cred. You had not done a feature, so it would have been really difficult for you to get somebody on board as well to go on this crazy adventure.
You're speaking my mind. I think there was a real catch-22 that I fought against, and I think we all can, as filmmakers, and this is why I love your show so much, because it's like a voice of reason amongst, you know,
insanity.
But how it really is, you know? And I think we all struggle. There's a real catch-22 in Hollywood, and there's no other way to say it, which is that you can't get it unless you've done it, and you can't do it unless you've done it.
Right. And so looking at it from my perspective, if a first-time director who's in their 20s, no offense, but in their 20s, who have not directed a lot other than some short films, and someone's like, hey, we're going to go around the world and make a movie, tradition or logic states that as an actor, you have to be a little nutty too, to jump on that bandwagon. So a name actor, even a face that's worked a lot in television or anything like that, it's a risk for them to do something like this. Now, if you do this exact same model today, you have Blood, Sand, and Gold as a reference, you will be able to get other actors to jump on that journey with you, because now you've got that street cred. But you couldn't. It would have been a little bit difficult, or you would have had to have paid a lot for that one actor to come out for the day.
And I have two good stories that will enlighten this point.
Go ahead.
So one is what we tried to do here. I know you've talked about this. I think you just had a podcast like a few days ago about this, which is that I always say when you're making a movie, it's so much of it is teamwork, but you have to be nice. And there's two parts about this. One is you have to be nice because being nice to people, you're going to already have a built-in network when you're going out to promote it. Right.
But
number two, is what we tried to do with this movie. When you recognize that filmmaking is a huge team sport, we tried to do something that I haven't seen yet, and I think we should start to see more as people start making more films at different lower budget points, is structure the movie like you structure startups, which is that every single person, not just the actors, every single person, I'm talking about the casting director, the assistant directors, every single person who's working those 16-hour days should have some percentage back end. In our movie, we made sure of that. So every single person who is part of this film, whether it's sound mixing, whatever it is, they all get a percentage back end on the sales of Blood, Sand, and Gold.
That's awesome.
That's hugely important. That's how businesses are set up nowadays. Especially filmmaking to me is so much like a startup, because you're basically building a prototype product, you're getting an investment for it, and you won't find out for 2 years whether it's going to sell on the market. So there's a huge risk involved.
Right.
And so for me, setting up the movie like that just made sense. And it also made sense in terms of, and I'm sure most of your audience already knows this, but actors do get this. Actors deals typically have this, producers may have this, directors have this, but you don't get it in a lot of the other integral parts of filmmaking. They don't, the gaffer for the day is not going to get a back end percentage. But if that gaffer is there for 16-hour days flying around the world, not making a lot of money, you definitely deserve it.
You got to toss him a bone, no question about it. Absolutely. The kind of schedule and what you were trying to do, this makes perfect sense. But generally speaking, as a producer, what you do is normally you just pay out their day, and so on. But if you're not able to pay out their day, depending on, especially with the kind of stress that you were putting these poor people under, it makes perfect sense. Which brings me to another question I had about, because I read this in another article about this movie. You made a deal with SAG about premiering your film online first to get, what was that deal you made with SAG?
Yeah, well, actually, I don't believe this contract is around anymore. Okay. But it was for 4 years it was around, was the new media contract.
Oh, okay. So that's
yes.
Okay.
Which is I don't know how familiar you are with it, but it is basically, as long as your film is going to be premiered on video on demand or online on an online platform first, there's just separate rates and separate rules about doing it. And so that was something we did for this movie, and it was the only way we could do it for the movie, because typically a SAG rate for filming overseas is like $1,000 a day or something,
if not more,
outside the country.
Sure,
if not more. But this wasn't an issue of money. I mean, the issue was the rules are there. Look, I'm in SAG. I respect SAG. I love what they do. But Aaron, Monica, the crew, they all wanted to do this, so we just had to work out what made sense for financially for the film, and then for them to make sure they were comfortable.
Got it.
But that's, I think, another. I wanted to share one other story about getting actors is when you have nothing to lose, you can ask for stuff. So, for example, we had one actor in the film. This happened a few times, but I was also emailing with agents and everything, and we were going to bring them down for 2 days for one scene, and it was like an easy scene, and they get to hang out with a bunch of like cool animals and whatever. And I think their agent was like, okay, that's fine. Their rate is $4,000 for the day.
Of course, their agent would say that.
And I was like, I have the email.
Yeah.
And I said, that's great. I'm going to give you $200 and a plane ticket to Mexico. Let me know if they're in. And the next day they said, they're not busy this weekend. That's fine. We'll do it. And the guy, it turned out the guy was like, he thought it was the most amazing experience ever.
Of course.
You know what I mean?
Of course.
And I'm not saying that's for everybody. It's not like a, something that could work all the time, but there's no harm in asking. Because you never know.
Yeah, you're not saying, look, I'm gonna I need $200 and we're gonna go up into the winter of Wyoming. Like it's not. It's like no, we're like we're going to Dubai, we're going to Mexico, we're going to Hong Kong.
Right, and they recognize the fact that on this film it was such an experience, and for the whole crew it was such an experience. This was something that you say stressful. There was definitely stress, but I think you could ask anyone on the crew.
Yeah, it's just yeah.
This was like a once in a lifetime,
Of course,
memorable trip, and we had a hell of a lot of fun.
Of course, it sounds like it. You had a when you have such a small crew, you've got to have this.
And they're all all friends. They're all the DP Chloe, the assistant camera Camilo.
Mm-hmm.
All of these people were like friends, and now we're tied together for life because we've seen some stuff,
which we could discuss off air.
Yes.
So by the way, whoever did your drone operation on this,
yes,
insane. I've seen a lot of I work on movies all the time, and I've seen a lot of drone, and it's just garbage. It's just always with a GoPro or something shooting like an MP4,
right.
like with like
right.
at standard depth. I mean, it's just horrendous. It really, really is. And when I looked at your movie, I was like, wow, he put a real camera on a drone, which I don't know why filmmakers don't do it as much. Because you can get and I think you shot this on a Blackmagic because I kind of recognize the style.
We shot. So we put a Blackmagic on the drone.
Mm-hmm.
We shot on it just a Scarlet,
mm-hmm.
just a red Scarlet, and then we had Cook S4 lenses, which were beautiful.
You rented them for like 2 months? Or
yeah,
whatever?
We rented them, and that was another thing. When you rent something past like a month, the price never goes up. It's like they peak out. They're like, all right, you just take them.
Yeah, exactly.
The rental house. So yeah, there were two brothers who did the drone operating. They were fantastic. One of them controlled the camera. One of them controlled the helicopter. They had built an octocopter
mm-hmm.
themselves that they used.
It's pretty insane.
Yeah, and they just, it was our prototype was there's a few sequences. One of my favorites where Aaron is walking through, doing this huge mountain trek, our lead actor.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And our prototype was just Lord of the Rings, every travel sequence in Lord of the Rings. And that's what they did. These insane kind of 360-degree swoops. You see the whole landscape, these guys were such pros. But I want to bring this to a point. Controversial point here, Alex.
I love controversy.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. You're going to fight me on this.
Go for it. Oh, I even like it better. Go.
In this film, I feel like as a filmmaker right now,
mm-hmm.
gear does not matter.
Absolutely.
As people argue about on
I'm not going to fight you on that. I actually did an entire podcast. I'm like, no one gives a crap about the camera you shoot on.
Thank you.
As long as it looks good. There is that. There is a level of quality. But I had Sean Baker on who was like sold a tangerine. He shot it on an iPhone.
Yeah,
and it looked
exactly.
it looked great. But he also, and I always preface that, I'm like, he knows what he's doing. This was his fifth feature. He had a real nice DP, and they did everything right on how to shoot an iPhone. They didn't just grab the phone out of their pocket and start shooting a movie. They planned it. They shot with special software. But you have to understand. But like in today's world, no one cares.
I think it's like definitely it matters in the sense that we've gotten to the point where we can do stuff for so much cheaper that's unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the Scarlet to purchase it is like $6,000 or something, or
I owned it, and to own it to actually make it work.
Oh, with the whole thing.
With like no, not even. You could probably get a nice Scarlet, like bare bone, no lenses, probably about 10 to 12. It's about the world with the monitor and the cards and
right,
basics just to make it work, about 10 to 12. But dude, you can go buy a Blackmagic Ursa Mini for $5, and it's insane.
And it's like, so it's gotten us to that point, and the fact that you can do drone shots now, that's a easily used tool that everybody has now in their toolbox.
Which before was like completely cost prohibitive, trying to get a helicopter pilot and
oh my god,
and trying to get with a gimbal at the front and the gyro, yeah,
crazy, awesome. So definitely that's helped so much time about like what camera we're going to shoot on and whatever, and it's like you said, it's just they're all no one's going to the theater looking at the pixel count. No one's going to the theater, looking at what kind of color thing you put on in the back end. They want to know if the story's there, and they want to be entertained.
At the end,
if that's an iPhone, then shoot it on an iPhone. But it should not prohibit you from going out to make your movie.
Right, and that's the thing, and I'll make this one quick statement, and it's absolutely true. It's like, look, guys, at the end of the day, you could shoot. I shot Meg on basically a $1,500 camera, which was a Blackmagic 2.5K. Yeah, yeah, Blackmagic, yeah, cinema camera 2.5. You know, I got it used for $1,500. Okay, so seriously, and it looks. You know, it looks as good as a lot of stuff out there. I'm not going to say it's the best thing ever shot, but it's definitely acceptable. And people have seen it. No one's ever that have watched it have ever said, wow, you know, it doesn't look as good as the Alexa, or it doesn't look as good as the Red. I'm like, no, they're into the story. As long as there's a base level production value in the way it's shot, which is now pretty much 1,000 cameras. We're past the point of the DVX 100A. Yes. We're past the point of like, oh, it's because it's shot on this camera. We're past that point, guys. Technology wise, like we left that world about almost 10 years ago at this point.
And for the kid who writes in about the pixel size, just send them $5. That's what I say. You know, anybody who takes the time to watch the movie and tell you that, just send them $5. They'll be happy. You know,
yeah, that's not a bad idea. But
good point, sir. You're right. You win.
You're right. That you know, I didn't shoot 8K this time because I'm not watching it. Gosh, because I'm not Guardians of the Galaxy. Right. I'm sorry. Right. I can't afford the new X, you know, the new whatever 825K whatever it is that they're going at now. So go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, while we're talking about budget, I wanted to share one other thing that we did. I talked a little bit about the explosions and how cheap they were, but something that adds a huge amount of production value that was extremely cheap for us was doing all of the effects practical.
Oh, yeah.
And let me give you an example. We bought a car. We had to blow up a car. And so we bought a used truck for something like $1,500. Maybe it was like $1,700. And I'm pretty sure the guy who sold it to us thought we were going to spend the summer driving around Mexico in it. We blew it up the next day.
Right.
But it was like that's a tiny fraction of the price that you'd expect to do that anywhere else, you know, or I guess people don't recognize that you can just buy the thing and break it. And that's your price. As a producer, that's your price. And so there were a lot of things like that we just, you know, we were able to just purchase the thing and break it or whatnot. There's a scene in the movie, a fight sequence that takes place in a bathroom, and we just bought a few of the appliances, like used appliances that you'd have in a bathroom, and they built a small set. Some art students helped us build a small set, and everybody thinks it takes place in a real bathroom, but the actual cost of the set was like $1,000, you know.
And you made that set.
Yeah, and it was a set. We just bought some used mirrors for like $30. We bought, you know, there were some art students who helped us help design it. But it was like, you know, the actual cost of these things is not that crazy if you have, you know, a couple $1,000s in your budget for your film and you want to do something like that.
That's insane. Now, how many actual days were you out from home? Like full. I know it's 57 production days, but how many months away?
When I say production days, I think that's the full, including travel.
Including travel.
Because what we would do. Back to one of your earlier points, how did we logistically do this? So what we would do is we would pick the place we wanted to go. We'd purchase the plane tickets, everything about a week or two before we started filming. And we laid out a schedule that had kind of buffer days when we landed in new places because we didn't know anybody there.
Right, that's my point.
A bunch of the stuff we didn't know. I mean, I'd never been to Chefchaouen.
All right.
So we rolled up there at the Airbnb, and we needed...
I'm sorry, it's nuts. I love it.
But we rolled up at the Airbnb, and we needed 2 people to get in a fight with us to play police officers, and so I just went down. It's a small like tourist village in Morocco, and I went down to the local square and asked if there were any theater groups. And a guy like the next day was like, "Yeah, come back here. There's like a Shakespeare theater group that practices here. That's local." And I met 2 of the guys and I said, look, we're trying to make a film here. We just would need you for 2 scenes. And who's going to say no to that? You know? And they're in it. Right. And the thing that also mitigated it is I was unafraid of having people speak local languages, which on a basic side, if they weren't the greatest actors that we could find, having them speak in a different language would help mask that to English audiences. So, and it helped. They were more comfortable doing that. So we filmed this scene in Arabic and French and Spanish with these two Shakespeare actors in Morocco that we'd met the day before, and we did a fight sequence on the side of a hill. And they're like, I still have their email addresses. They were super cool.
That's amazing. You're blowing my mind, dude. Seriously, it's something that, you know, I'm a little bit older than you. When I say a little bit, I mean a lot. But I remember being 27 and being like, when you get to 37, you'll go back and you'll go, oh my God.
Yeah.
What the hell was I thinking? So I always say this, anyone who's listening out there, anyone who's young in their 20s, this is the time to do this kind of stuff, because once the 30s come into play, you might get married, you might have kids, the life starts coming in, all of that stuff starts coming down, and you can't take as many risks as you used to, because you have people counting on you as a male director, but as a female director as well. There's other things that happen as well. So the 20s are the time to do this. Now, you took in things to a completely different level that I ever did in my 20s. So touche, sir. No. So what are some of the lessons that you did learn on this process, and that you would warn us all about?
Yeah, so I think we chatted about a few. So one is find a name early on. Find a name, any name that you can for the film. You know, whether you bring them in for a day or not, that's something that definitely now in this side of the process, and the distributor and selling it internationally side of the process, we could have done better.
Okay.
And then I know this is probably cheesy, and it will mean different things to each person. But I really find myself telling this to people a lot when they ask about making films and whatnot, is like, the number one thing you should do is make something that you love first, you know? And I talk about this in the context of, like, when we were in pre-production for this film, you know, there was like an element of me that was checking in with people in LA and trying to chat to my Hollywood contacts about doing this. And maybe I should have listened more. But the way that they would have done this film and the story that they would have told was not the story that I wanted to tell, because they have different motives. They want to market it. They want to do this. They want to do that, you know? And I love what I know that he's often quoted. So maybe he's controversial, Casey Neistat, but he had something.
Oh, I love Casey.
A while back. And you probably read this. And he said, people email him all the time and say, hey, Casey, how do I get JetBlue to pay for me to film a vlog in Thailand or around the world? And he's like, you were totally missing the point, because 14 years ago, I just started making movies that I liked, that I thought were entertaining, that made me happy. And 14 years later, JetBlue is like, whoa, we will pay you to do that. But he didn't set out to be like, I want JetBlue to pay for my movies. And I think that's so important.
That's a really great piece of advice, man. A lot of people think about that. They always think about like the end game, but they're not thinking about the journey. They always think about like, I want a studio to give me money to make my movie. Right. And, you know, I'm sure you would rather have $20 million to go make your next movie, you know, or 50 or 100 million to go make your next movie. But a lot of people, a lot of filmmakers,
it's too much.
Yeah, that is a little too much. Yeah, I'm going to agree with you on that. But you know what I'm saying? But a lot of filmmakers go to that end game and they don't enjoy the journey and don't like. You just have to enjoy the process, and that took me 20 years to learn.
And the thing about Blood, Sand, and Gold, love it or hate it, maybe it'll get well reviewed, maybe it won't. But because it's something that I wanted to make, and it's because it's a story that I wanted to tell and do it in the way that I wanted to do it, I will love it no matter what, and I will never regret it. You know?
Yeah, it's your baby, and you loved it, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, and that's more important, you know, than being like, oh, well, someone in Studio City right now is like, oh, it's good, but it doesn't have a name. You know, it's like, whatever. This is the movie that I wanted to make. I made it. Here it is. Take it for what it is. And I think Casey Neistat is that kind of story he tells is just great. It's just like set out to make that first. And you know what? If someone then gives you $50 million along the way, great.
It's exactly. Look, it's the same process I've been going through with Indie Film Hustle. You know, I just popped it up a year and a half ago. And
was a super smart move.
I mean, I popped it up a year and a half ago.
And what is this? This is episode what, like 160?
I don't know. by the time this airs,
200? Am I 200?
No, we're not there yet. But you'll be
hold it till then?
You'll be in between the 140s and 150s probably. So,
Okay.
which is insane. But I love what I'm doing, and I enjoy helping other filmmakers. I've been doing it for a better part of a decade. I did it back in 2005 when I first started out. So it's something that's in my blood, and I've always wanted to do that. And then because I'm doing what I'm enjoying, all these other opportunities have opened up. So
Yes.
Casey's completely right. I get to meet filmmakers like you that I would have never met if I was just sitting around bitching about not making a movie or not, or like, oh, the Hollywood's not doing it for me, or they're not seeing my genius, like a lot of filmmakers say in their own heads. Or you could go out and do stuff, and you start making connections. You start meeting people, and opportunities present themselves that would have never been there just because you create action. You actually do something.
It's like you're reading my list right here. That was the last point I was going to bring up
Mhm.
about tips. Is that I know it sucks, this side of it, but you have to network and go and promote yourself,
Mhm.
In some way, because there's just not a hidden contingent of people on the other side of the internet who are like going to just jump on the bandwagon
Mhm.
without there being some connection. And this is why I go back to be awesome, be nice when you're making your movie. There's no point on being a diva, because everybody you touch during the film is going to be interested in seeing it. Everybody you work with, the guy that that lent us his treasure chest, each one of those people is already going to be your built-in network when the movie comes out, to help tell the word and help purchase it and share it with people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it seems obvious, but it's just like there's not this hidden group of people who are like, whoa, I wonder what you're doing right now. You have to really go out and like meet people and tell your story
And do podcasts.
Yeah. So thank you for having me on.
No worries. Now, your distributor is Gravitas, right?
Yes.
Can you tell us?
They're great.
Yeah, they're awesome. They're friends of the show. And how is that process? Because obviously you don't have a star in it, so they obviously saw some value in it to pick it up. So how did that process go around?
Yes. So that's been a tough process as well. So when we finally finished the film, we were looking around for what to do next, and we had a lot of issues with exactly show with, which is people looked at it and were like, it's just like another action movie.
Mm-hmm.
And in this marketplace, just another action movie doesn't cut it, especially without a name attached.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what really kind of raises the difference is when you hear about the story of how it was made,
Mm-hmm.
and you see this as an independent film,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of hear about, that really puts it in context, I think, as a story and film. So Gravitas saw that, and they picked up on that immediately, and they were like, this is really cool. As we market this, let's make sure we market, just about how ridiculous it is that you guys made this for so little money.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing they saw too, which I was banking on a little bit, was they said, this is a genre that does really well for us. I mean, listen, Alex, there is a reason that it's called Blood, Sand, and Gold. It is because
the first letter's B.
The first letter's B, which means it's going to be very high up on your Netflix queue. I kid you not.
No.
It's called Blood, Sand, and Gold is because if it's Friday night, those are the three elements that I want to see in a movie. It's as simple as that.
All right.
If I want to watch an action adventure movie, I want some blood, I want some sand, I want a lot of gold. That's it. And I love that. It's like just down to the heart of like what we're trying to show, and what if you embark on this adventure with us, what we show off in 90 minutes.
That's awesome. Are you going to be doing a lot of like behind the scenes, special features, any of that stuff?
You are slowly rolling out a few kind of ridiculous behind the scenes videos, which you can find on our Facebook page, facebook.com/blood, sand, and gold, and then our website just bloodsandgold.com.
Right.
And then we also have sold the film. We have Multivisionaire Pictures, who's great, is an international kind of seller, film distributor. And so they sold the film. It's been picked up in China, in Germany, and then for theatrical in Thailand, which is like,
that's awesome.
I kind of want to get the whole cast on a plane and just show up.
It only costs you a few $100, so might as well.
Yeah, exactly. As long as we string it together to all the territories. I don't know what that means theatrical in Thailand, but I'm down. I'm down to figure it out.
So I know you haven't done this before, but do you think you're going to make some money on this?
I hope. I mean, I know that. I know that my mom and dad are going to buy it.
There's that.
My mom's struggling with the iTunes link. I love her to death. She's got to wait till it goes to the Google Play Store. But
wow,
I'm banking on at least that. I mean, you can purchase it now on iTunes. It's the price of. There's a pre-sale. It's the price of 2 coffees. And that would greatly help us. But it is going to come out March 10th in select theaters in the U.S.
Okay.
And also online on video on demand at the same time on March 10th.
So it's you're doing a small theatrical here in the U.S.?
Gravitas is doing three I don't know what you'd call it. 3 areas, 3 cities, I guess.
Territories. Yeah.
3 territories. There we go. So we don't know what those are. We find out in the next couple days. But certainly I'm planning to go with our co-stars and make some surprise appearances at whatever those theaters are.
Nice. That's awesome, man.
Why not? At least it'll be us in the. At least it'll be us.
At least there's at least 5-6 people at least.
Yeah, exactly.
So, what advice would you give a filmmaker just starting out in the business?
I would say you have tools right now. Go out and film something. I mean, if this podcast, if this episode, if all of these podcasts that you made teach you anything, it's that you can do this right now. You know, there's really not a point to wait. You can upload to YouTube. You already have the opportunity of an audience of worldwide immediately, you know, and you can film with your freaking phone if you want. I mean, just for me, when I went to film school, I think so many people were into the technical aspects, which is a whole beautiful side of it. But the most important thing that they taught us at NYU at Tisch was storytelling. And I stand by that. Is like, at the end of the day, it's like, are you going to entertain people? And you can do that right now with your phone. You can do that on any medium that works for you. So that's where you start. I would start right there. If you want to break into the business, you should also listen to this podcast.
I should appreciate it.
That's my advice.
I appreciate it. Well, if they're listening to it, then they've already obviously.
Yes.
Now, what is the lesson that took you the longest to learn, whether in the film business or in life?
You're asking just so many tough ones. The lesson. I mean, look, I'm a young guy. I'm making a lot of mistakes, and I'm still trying to learn a lot. I really think it's the Casey Neistat story that he said is just make something you love first. That's the only thing that matters. And you can't. I don't have a good metaphor, but you can't jump the gun on this. You know, you can't design. You cannot. My understanding now of how the film business works, from my perspective, yes, you need networking. But you can't jump the gun in terms of being like, I'm going to come up with an elaborate scheme to scheme my way into getting a $50 million film without having to put in the time, you know,
that doesn't work.
Doesn't work. It's not going to work. You need to just make stuff that's entertaining or that you love first. And you will get noticed. You will get noticed if that happens. There's a whole contingent of people. They're called agents.
Right. Managers, lawyers.
Right. Trying to find people who are talented,
so they can make money off of them.
Yeah, exactly.
It's bottom line.
But there is a whole group of people that combing stuff, looking at viral videos, looking at those people because they want to sign people who are talented.
Absolutely.
I think in this day and age, the other thing I'd say, and again, it sucks if you're an introvert out there listening. I hear you. I am that person too. I try to be more private. Is now there is a real currency online to having some kind of following, you know, and look, it sucks to say that, but people are making decisions. From my understanding of what I know, people are making decisions on that based on if there is a built-in following for a product, if you have Instagram followers, if you have Facebook followers, if people like are watching your video that you're putting out on YouTube.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, but true.
Yeah, no. And it's not something that, I'm still trying to figure out that. I'm sure everyone's trying to figure out that, but that is an element now of the networking, promoting that people that unfortunately, if you're an introvert like me out there, that you have to pay attention to.
It's something that you have to I've done multiple podcasts about building your audience, and it's just imperative now, especially if you're in the low budget world. Like, you're going to try to sell something yourself through self distribution, and without an audience, it's your mom and your friends are not going to be able to pay for that movie.
Right. Exactly.
So, what are your 3 of your favorite films of all time?
Ooh, 3 of my favorite films of all time. I'll tell you my favorite.
Mhm.
My favorite is The English Patient.
That makes perfect sense.
I love that movie. That movie is just great. Man, top 3. I used to have a. No, I mean, yeah. I'd say that was the top one. I love every. I just have a different perspective. I mean, I think everyone does when they work in the film industry about movies. Because there's so many movies that it's harder to find movies that you get thoroughly immersed into because you pay so much attention to how it was made and what was happening behind the scenes. It's kind of like the curse of being a filmmaker.
Right.
When you see a movie, like I would say, when I see a movie like The English Patient, something that I love about it is I just get totally immersed in it. I don't even think about how they're making stuff.
It was like Shawshank. Like, I watched Shawshank,
Yes,
and I'm not even talking about like how Frank Darabont moved the camera or how he lit the scene. I'm just in it. I'm there with Andy. I'm there with Red, and it's just magical every time.
Yeah. I mean, I'd stick it at that. That's the best.
Now, where can people find you?
So right now you can follow along with the film, facebook.com/bloodsandgold or bloodsandgold.com. And then you can also pre-order our film on iTunes right now. If you just search under movies or just put into iTunes, Blood, Sand, and Gold, it will be available on other platforms. And then I also have a Twitter handle, just Gaelan_Connell on Twitter.
Perfect. And I'll put all that in the show notes, guys. So, Galen, man, I can't express how much it was such a great...
It was such a pleasure.
Yeah, it was so much fun having you on the show. I had so much fun on the show, and you're a real inspiration to a lot of filmmakers. That's why I always...
You as well.
I'm
still listening.
You've got a few to go through then, my friend, if you just started. Thanks again for being on the show, man. Well, guys, if that doesn't inspire you to go make a movie, I don't know what the hell is going to. I mean, seriously, what Galen was able to do with Blood, Sand, and Gold is remarkable. And I have gotten a chance to see the movie early, and I tell you, it was a hell of a ride. And I wish him nothing but the best. I can't wait to see what he does next. And if you guys want to watch the movie, it is going to be released on iTunes March 10th. So definitely go and pre-order and support indie film. Absolutely. Just out of morbid curiosity, if you want to see how he was able to do what he did, I definitely suggest you go out and either rent it or buy it on iTunes. And I'll leave a link for that in the show notes at indiefilmhustle.com/145. And again, there's no excuses, guys. If you want to make something happen, you can make something happen. There is no excuses. You can grab a camera, go out and make a movie, sell it, rinse and repeat. Now, you can go at the level that I did with This Is Meg, which was a much more humble level to get the ball rolling, or you can go balls to the wall, Blood, Sand, and Gold style and do it big time. So there's a lot of different places in between there that you can land as well. Just go out and tell your story. There are no more excuses, guys. All right? Now, don't forget to head over to freefilmbook.com. That's freefilmbook.com to download your free filmmaking and screenwriting audiobooks from Audible. And guys, also don't forget that this weekend, Saturday, March 4th, is the world premiere of This Is Meg at CineQuest. So if you guys are up in the Bay Area, please come down, visit us. We're going to be there Saturday and Sunday for our 2 screenings, one at 3:30 on Saturday and one at 8:30 p.m. on Sunday. And me, Jill, and the whole cast is going to be there for Q&As and meetings and all that kind of cool stuff. So definitely come by and check it out. And I'm really kind of excited about this world premiere, man, because you guys have been with me on This Is Meg since I boldly Babe Ruth called my shot at the beginning of last year, saying I'm going to make a movie no matter what. And I did, and I got it into CineQuest, and we're hopefully going to be getting into some other festivals as well. But to world premiere at a festival like CineQuest is kind of like a dream come true. And you guys have been with me. this entire time, and I cannot wait to continue the journey showing you how I distribute this, how I market this, and see if we can actually make some money with This Is Meg. And so I can show you that template, and hopefully you guys can replicate it as well. So stay tuned for that. If you want tickets, head over to the show notes, and I'll leave a link in the description. As always, keep that hustle going, keep that dream alive, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Indie Film Hustle podcast at indiefilmhustle.com. That's INDIEFILMHUSTLE.com.